All right. This is it. Thank you, James. Pardon, here I am. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Yeah, hang on, I got to sniffle first. All right. Lastly and not leastly, when we're talking about the content, what makes an Acquisitions Incorporated campaign? Sounded like a mic check, just letting you know that we hear you. Whoa, hey XCat, good to see you. Welcome, welcome. XCat, I see you're looking at Acquisition Incorporated stuff. My Tuesday group has been playing it. Oh, you're the group Hordes person? How have you enjoyed it? We just went over those roles in the group, XCat. Can you give commentary? Like it's awesome, or it's or we're having trouble with something, or yes, this is an awesome supplement. I recommend everyone play it. Carl, maybe another half hour? Depends on how long it takes to get through the franchise tasks and downtime segment. As talked about in the Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide, downtime activities allow players and Dungeon Masters to make the breaks between adventures into a compelling part of the campaign. In between the highlights of slogging through dungeons, infiltrating death cults, and being generally heroic, characters can practice professions, engage in research, create special items, and indulge other activities beyond adventuring. Because an Acquisitions Incorporated campaign is focused on the franchise, downtime is typically a big part of the game. The adventure that makes up Chapter 4 of this book, The Orrery of the Wanderer, sets up downtime options between adventure episodes as a key component of the campaign. But an AC Inc. campaign offers even more robust options for players who want to get things done outside adventuring time, because the heroes of an Acquisitions Incorporated campaign have something most adventurers don't: a well-paid, okay, occasionally paid staff. In addition to the downtime activities characters undertake on their own, the hard-working sub-employees and interns of a franchise can carry out orders and further the character's goals through research, crafting, social encounters, and so forth. This lets the players direct behind-the-scenes activities, even as the characters focus on the more rarefied pursuits of killing monsters and taking their stuff. Before your party sets out for the Fortress of Eternal Peril, an intern can be sent to research that magic book found in a previous adventure. Your major domo might spend time currying favor with nobles as a means of expanding the franchise's reputation. And what could be more fun for you than to have the staff engage in a bit of dangerous criminal activity? If they're successful, the franchise gets the profits, and if they get caught, who are these people you barely know? XCat says, we're still early on, but we're making good progress and having good fun with the roles. So what does the party consist of then? If you're the Hordes person, is it like a 4-person party, and so there's just 3 others? Or I'm glad you're having fun with it so far. I definitely want to hear from people who are enacting it, or have you found that tracking the information is somehow onerous, or it's confusing, or is your party... has your party really slipped into it and everything is nice and smooth? Now, franchise tasks in the campaign. If you recall, franchises get a certain number of tasks that they get to do every month. And scrolling up through here, remember, the size of your franchise grows. You see franchise tasks right here? I don't understand the question, Carl. It's honestly a lot smoother at my table. Oh, you don't have to apologize. I don't think I understood what you were asking. Oh, gotcha. It's a part of the name. Having the role features is the same kind of management that comes with having a magic item, and are easily handled because each role features are laid out for them. Yeah, I'm glad I was able to clarify for you, Carl. Oh, I went a little bit too far. All right. By allowing franchise tasks to take place, not just during downtime, but while the characters are adventuring, it's possible for players in an Acquisitions Incorporated game to try and push the pace of the campaign. Characters might try to avoid taking downtime of their own in favor of having franchise employees take care of all that boring, not adventuring stuff. But because an Act Inc. campaign makes great use of social encounters, research, and intrigue, players should be encouraged to not treat downtime as optional. Moreover, DMs can and will make use of rivalries and complications during franchise tasks to drag characters into that part of the game. Using the traditional approach to downtime, franchise tasks can be run at set breakpoints during the campaign. When the characters return from adventuring, they take on some of the responsibility for bookkeeping, maintenance, long-term planning, and the like, making franchise staff available for other activities under the character's guidance. In this model, characters and staff run downtime simultaneously between sessions of adventuring. This follows the standard approach of using downtime to advance the timeline of the campaign. Ongoing activities. A more wide-open approach to franchise tasks sees the characters direct those activities at any point during the campaign alongside traditional adventuring. During any game session, the players can decide to focus on what the franchise staff are up to by setting assignments, giving orders, and making checks to determine the success of franchise tasks. If those tasks tie strongly to the adventure, franchise tasks can effectively become a fourth pillar of an Acquisitions Incorporated game alongside exploration, social interaction, and combat. Selecting franchise tasks. Whether franchise tasks are undertaken during regular downtime or alongside other adventuring activities, a franchise's rank puts a hard limit on the number of tasks the franchise's staff can undertake. See the franchise advancement section earlier in this chapter. This limit is only for franchise tasks undertaken by staff. The characters are free to undertake whatever downtime activities the DM allows as normal. For each available franchise task slot, players can allocate one or more staff members to a chosen franchise task. Those tasks can include any of the downtime activities in the player's handbook or the Dungeon Master's Guide. Which, that's maintenance. But there we go, downtime activities right here. Boop-a-doop. And I wonder where that was. Planes of Existence, creature stats. There we go. Page 187 in the player's handbook and 127 in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And I don't have it open, but it does reference Xanathar's Guide to Everything, as that also has a very good list of downtime activities. And the new activities in this section. When all of a franchise's task slots are filled, one of those tasks must be completed before staff can be allocated to a new franchise task. The one exception to this rule is running a franchise activity presented later in the section. That activity must be performed by a franchise, but does not require that specific character or staff members be allocated to it. Staff allocated to a franchise task are no longer available for other needs, including other franchise tasks. Any costs or resources associated with the franchise task must be provided by the franchise, which is to say, by the characters. For example, a Rank 2 franchise can undergo 2 concurrent franchise tasks. If the characters are setting out to explore the swamp of lingering malaise, they might order their major domo to send messages to various noble families while they're away, carrying out the sowing rumors activity from the Dungeon Master's Guide. The task follows the regular rules for that downtime activity, but is carried out by the major domo. At the same time, the characters might send out another staff member to engage in the Explore Territory activity, a new activity detailed below. When a franchise task requires an ability check, a staff member can use their own ability check modifier to determine the success. This modifier might depend on the staff member's statistics if an NPC, or it might be based on the franchise's rank. See the franchise advancement section. Alternatively, the staff member can use the check modifier of a character overseeing the task and giving the staff member direction. This can encourage the characters to develop closer relationships with the franchise staff through role-playing and keeps the players involved in staff-focused franchise tasks. So, I mean, we're getting a lot of tongue-in-cheek, like, yeah, if you pay your employees. And you know what? You could have a... It seems like you could have a very callous Adventures Inc. Or Acquisitions Incorporated party or game. You know, so you could have that fun office humor kind of thing. Or you could really care about it and try and, like, grow something that is... You know, everyone wins, you know, that you get the best pay and health policy or whatever. You know, have it be a paradisical place to work. Franchise tasks as narrative. Or I'm sorry, did I, no, okay, so the role-playing. Franchise tasks can be an exciting, story-rich part of a gaming session. Over time, franchise tasks and character downtime activities can expand the story of a franchise and add depth to the characterizations of its NPC staff members. The successes, failures, and complications of franchise tasks might even become pivotal moments in the campaign. As with all aspects of an Acquisitions Incorporated campaign, franchise tasks are about creating narrative. As such, to make those tasks a part of the campaign story, the DM and players can work together to break tasks down into distinct scenes using the following guidelines. And let me catch up in chat here. I lost myself. Yeah, James, it's not because I put people in the morgue. XCat says, the roles just set an expectation of which character handles what stuff. If you find... books, the Documenter will probably want to see them, and if you find loot, you want the Horde's person to carry it, and so on. It's like each player gets something to be charged of. That's probably the healthiest set of expectations. Oh, thank you for the independent verification. That was exactly what I was picking up from that, XCat. Stops arguments also? Yeah. It's Curb the Rules lawyer of the group pretty hard, to be honest, by giving them a meta job. So can you share how, you know, an interaction where that happened? I'm glad to hear that there's more harmony because of that. That seems like a success story, especially if it turned a rules lawyer into, you know, someone who's like, this is your job, this is what you do. Gives you a canon thing to rules lawyer, says XCat, but you don't pay attention to much of the other people's things as often, as one would regularly. Be the best, Dwight Schrute? You know that you can be. XCat says, one of my group's characters is a part of a knight's order and has some NPCs that already work under him. James says, in AD&D, I was mapmaker, quartermaster, etc. Oh, so you did all the stuff. O'Sheep says, someone hasn't seen The Office. I've seen clips of The Office. I have not watched The Office. What is TV? I don't even. That's not entirely untrue. Though it is mostly true. You know, I get stopped time and again by people, you know, because like stores will have someone from DirecTV or someone, in the local Sam's Club occasionally has someone who's there with, you know, like DirecTV or satellite service. And, you know, it's their job. I don't get mad at them as, you know, they approach and you're like, okay, you know, in your mind, you know what they're going to ask. And I'm not rude about it. I mean, I already know I'm not going to get the service, but it doesn't mean I have to be a jerk about it. And I had one guy who looked a little baffled at me. He's like, so, how much TV would you watch? Or like, so how many TVs do you have? Or something along those lines. He's doing a little kind of fact finding. And I'm like, yeah, I have a couple TVs in the house. And he says, oh, so on average, how much TV do you watch? And I say, 0. I don't watch TV. And he thought about it for a moment. I said, internet only. You're probably going to ask about my cable package and how many channels I'm getting through them. The answer is I get absolutely 0 channels through my cable provider. I get internet through my cable provider, but I do not get any TV. I can't tell you the last time where I sat down and watched TV in a home environment. It's probably been 13 years since I've sat down to watch TV on a television receiving a television signal. James says, funny thing, we had 2 mappers. After months, I was trying to explain which path we hadn't gone down. Oldport says, the rules lawyer was a very meticulous thing with the lore, so loremonger, so he isn't harassing anyone at this point now, because he has no point to argue anything, and any sort of lore bouncing is between him and the Documancer writing contracts. I finished the main campaign of a Critical Role season the other day. I hope you enjoyed it, XCat. James says, after trying to explain for a long time to the other mapper, says, wait, there were 2 landings? To which I bury my head in my hands. I watch a lot of TV. I've been catching up on Netflix's Marvel stuff lately. PlayStation View is my kind of thing, says Oldport. I can basically just decide that I want to pay for a month to get a show or what have you. It keeps your DVR even if you don't pay. Oh. I like these. I like these. The concepts, like whether it's using Acquisitions Inc. or just we did things that were similar, and especially hearing it for prevented arguments. That is awesome. Oh my gosh! I re-angled the fan, and I do have air blowing on me. But my goodness, my contacts are they're dry. Trying to watch TV in America is like trying to listen to someone's story about. It's someone's story, but a door-to-door salesman keeps showing up and taking over the story. Do you not have a lot of commercials down your way, XCat? Alright, so establish goals. When the characters select a franchise task, the players share their goals for that task with the DM. Having clear motives helps establish the stakes and provides ideas that the DM can weave into the campaign story. The DM might work up a narrative based on the player's initial discussions and might ask additional questions to help narrow down options. As an example, consider a group of characters whose franchise headquarters is a submersible ship and whose staff are largely former pirates. While the characters head out for a mission on the mainland, they direct the ship's staff member captain to surprise other vessels and liberate goods from them. The DM decides that such acts of piracy fit the shady business practice activity introduced later in the section, and quickly sketches out a few ideas for the task. Then the opening scene. The DM describes the beginning of the activity, setting the stage for the NPC's actions. For the submersible headquarters discussed above, the DM might begin to describe how the ship leaves port in search of easy prey. The captain and crew are in a good mood. There's a storm in the area, but it doesn't threaten the submersible. The DM might ask the players to describe a few undertakings the crew can engage in to pass the time, or might even ask players to temporarily take on the roles of one or more staff members, helping to bring those NPCs to life through role-playing. For each ability check required by a franchise task, the DM describes what's happening, determines the applicable ability, and decides whether a skill or tool proficiency is appropriate. Usually it's suggested by the activity write-up. Whether the check is made by a staff member or the character who directed or set up the franchise task, a player makes the roll. The DM can encourage role-playing by asking about what kind of guidance a character provided to the staff member or what part of the staff member's background makes them good at the task at hand. The DM then describes successive scenes based on checks and role-playing. It's a role-playing check from 4th edition. or a skill challenge almost. That's what I meant. The DM, I loved minions in 4th Ed, and I love skill challenges in 4th Ed too. I thought those were brilliant. The DM then describes successive scenes based on checks and role-playing as the crew members locate a likely target ship and commence their attack. Then we conclude the scene. The DM determines the overall outcome for the franchise task, then narrates the outcome to wrap up that small part of the overall story. If the check for the activity indicates any degree of success, the DM describes how the franchise's pirates managed to grab some valuable cargo, in addition to other benefits, as noted in the write-up for the shady business practice activity. With treasure aboard, the ship is ready for the character's eventual return. You have an ongoing story. Rather than treating franchise tasks as isolated episodes, the DM can weave the story of one task into the next, and can tie franchise tasks into the overarching campaign. Doing so assigns importance to franchise tasks, and lets the players understand how the success or failure of those tasks might drive the campaign. Even after a specific franchise task is concluded, the DM can make notes for how that task might tie to future tasks. For the characters running the submersible franchise, the ship that fought off the franchise's pirates might remember a few details about the franchise crew, or perhaps the plundered vessel belongs to a franchise rival, or even a foreign dignitary that characters will eventually meet, setting up a future plot twist. Catch up in chat here. Yes, there is a TV tax on the British broadcast. Yeah, I always found that to be very weird and interesting, and they'll roll past your house and try and spy into it to see if you're secretly have a TV in there or something. It's just kind of weird. So I basically got to DVR a lot of stuff, even though I wasn't paying for TV for a few months. And it kept DVRing the series I set it to, even though I wasn't paying. So I got it again last month, and I have the entire thing now. Hashtag hidden feature. Oh my. We're getting life hacks from Old Port Media here. Xcat says, I mean, there are TV commercials, but from what I know of American TV, you almost get more ads than TV. About 70% are medical advert. Well, yeah, it depends on the show and the target audience. BBC is an all-right way of doing it. In New Zealand, it's free TV, but there are a few product ads. Nowhere near as bad as the USA. In my group's Acquisitions Incorporated game, we took down a bandit camp and got some uncut gems. And with my magic jeweler's kit I got from being the Hordes person, I cut them proper, increasing their value. Then made them into simple jewelry. Then our wizard cast a spell on them that makes someone appraising them make a check versus a spell save, and on a fail they see them as double value. We made some big money. Oh, wombo combo. Is that a spell? Is that a spell out of this book? They have equipment to detect TVs. It's about 18 minutes of ads for an hour of TV in the USA. The first or second one in the book? Okay. Well, then that's something we'll get to tomorrow then. This section introduces the following new downtime activities, all of which can be used as franchise tasks in an Acquisitions Incorporated campaign. Explore territory, franchise restructuring, headquarters modification, marketeering, philanthropic enterprise, running a franchise, scrutineering, shady business practice, schmoozing, team building. Other downtime activities can be found in one of the following books. And they don't give the exact page, but who knows? They might do a future reprint or a redux, and so it's good that they keep it kind of generic. But Player's Handbook, DMG, and Xanathar's, and they even list at least the name of the task, which is nice, and it makes this blue box a very handy area to just reference. Sure, pick a task out of here. So rather than treating the franchise task as isolated, okay, so that was the ongoing one. Doing so assigns importance to franchise tasks and lets the players understand how the success or failure of those tasks might drive the campaign. Even after a specific franchise task is concluded, the DM can make notes on how that task might... Oh, did I already read that section? Sorry if I did. That seems familiar. We're also, because we're also putting mechanics to things like task, whereas a placeholder word for a mechanic in the game, I see task, 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 and it could be a little, whoop. Plus it's 3:21 in the morning. The franchise and downtime activities introduced in this section all incorporate the idea that such activities can introduce ongoing complications to the campaign, and that anything a franchise's characters or employees do might bring the franchise into conflict with rivals. If you use Xanathar's Guide to Everything in your games, you're probably already familiar with complications and rivals as part of downtime, but you don't need to own the book to make use of these ideas. Rather, just remember that an Acquisitions Incorporated campaign is always about story. Each time the characters engage in downtime or direct their staff in a franchise task, the players and the DM can think about how those tasks and activities might complicate the ongoing campaign narrative, and how the franchise's enemies, or potential enemies, might get caught up in those complications. When a complication or rival comes into play during downtime or franchise activities, the DM determines the particulars. The activities presented at the end of this section all come with tables of possible complications, but the DM is free to come up with an even more dastardly complication to suit the campaign. Distort value, I think it's 1 hour save duration. Personally, I think I'll end my Acquisitions Incorporated short game with a ground war or an intrigue war with a rival company. Oh, are we getting like Gangs of New York style? Are we gonna have a brawl in Waterdeep or something, Old Port? Hey, haha. An easy way to focus on complications and rivals in a campaign is to think about who might be paying attention to the franchise's activities. This gets into that whole Aarakocra exists. Oh, they baffle me as a DM because they fly. So why doesn't the world react to the presence of Aarakocra that can fly? For example, a successful philanthropic enterprise, one of the new activities in this section, could draw the attention of a noble who begins to question the reputation and honesty of the characters running the franchise. Or the party might launch a marketeering campaign only to discover that their branding has an accidental resemblance to the logo of an assassin's guild. Complications are an excellent way to develop rich interactions between the setting and the characters. In an Acquisitions Incorporated campaign, even the smallest actions can have unexpected and ideally hilarious consequences. Rivals represent any of the factions and organizations that can come into play during an Acquisitions Incorporated campaign. Rivals don't have to be villains or mortal enemies of the characters, though. Other AC Inc. franchises all compete with the characters' franchise, seeking to expand their own reach and impress head office. Governments, merchants, guilds, religious institutions, and noble families can all take notice as a franchise grows in power, and outside the character's immediate sphere of influence, factions such as Dran Enterprises and the Six work dark plots that might make the characters targets for assimilation or destruction. And it gets into that in the campaign, but I won't be reviewing that because I want you to experience it. I want you to get the book, read through it on your own, and especially with the campaign and those materials, interpret it how you will. When a complication occurs during a downtime or franchise activity, the DM determines whether and how that complication connects to a rival. And it gets back into creating rivals in Chapter 4 about NPCs in the DMG. For many of you, especially if you've been a part of this channel for the creation of this, this is a book that is bringing it all back together and is pointing you in the absolute correct decisions. Another good check in a campaign, if you're frustrated as a dungeon master, are you enforcing consequences for the actions of the players? Now, consequences has a negative connotation. It doesn't always have to be. I know, Old Port, I think that you said that there was a spell in particular that was really making you scratch your head. Or, no, it was a build. It was a character build, a lucky halfling. And the way to overcome something like that, if it is being extremely aggravating, that still makes the world come to life and doesn't seem punitive unless you as the DM are presenting it as being punitive or spiteful. I'm not saying that to you, Old Port. This is just in general. If someone is astoundingly powerful or astoundingly lucky, there are always going to be people who watch, who observe, who sell that information or report back to someone, or otherwise the word gets out. You know, beware the halfling with the red scarf, or you know, certain countermeasures might come up, right? There are actions and there are reactions. Everything that you do, even in life. Right now, what I'm doing here, I'm at my desk and I'm talking to you through the internet. In its own way, this is having a ripple effect on you and the things that, you know, you could have been doing something else. You could have been watching something else. You could have been reading a book that would give you an idea to make an invention, and I just cost you $1 million patent. Sorry. But everything we do has consequences. It's in economics, we call stuff like that, well, in part, it's opportunity cost. The things you give up when you choose to take the course of action that you have. That's your opportunity cost. You could have been designing $1 million invention. Instead, you're watching some schlub on Twitch talk about D&D. I'm expensive, oh sheeps. Xanathar's fixed the entirety of that. Xcat says, extremely lucky halfling attracts the attention of a mage that hires them to do stuff, but is really watching them to see how lucky they are. And stay lucky, the wizard tried to capture them to make luck potions out of them. Yeah. Yeah, suddenly you're turning into a commodity. Lucky feat is once per day. The other halfling feat is once per encounter. Might just have to toss more encounters at them. Oh no! So, because it's stressing collaborative storytelling, which is wonderful. Because it's stressing collaborative storytelling, your PCs might not see complications as punitive or as something that, oh, well, you know, like it's forced, or, you know, because it's all a part, right? You ask them, well, something's going to happen here. What could go wrong? I want each of you to throw out an idea, and we'll decide, or we'll draw straws or something. You know, it's fun, and it brings the narrative close to the group. This Acquisitions Incorporated model is a very it's a lot more mechanically intimate storytelling rules for D&D. Because a lot of this is inclusive and binding the party together. Let's see, Oldport says, I have one way to fix that. Enemies abound. Good game. You one-hit your own tank. The party has killed the magic jar user twice now after that. Lucky feats 3 times a day. Their ability bonuses don't do well as wizard for portent. Oldport says it's a bit more realistic storytelling. It's quite grounding. When it comes to uses of portent, just have fun with it, says XCat. James says they start running into other portent wizards and halflings that have the same ability. Then it becomes a portent war. You only get 2 uses of portent a day, and you pre-roll the dice. Well, it's still that's very powerful to invoke. In addition to the downtime activities found in other books, characters and their franchise staff can undertake the new activities presented in this section, either as regular downtime activities or as franchise tasks that can be undertaken at any time. These activities reflect the central role of the franchise in Acquisitions Incorporated, or in an AC Inc. campaign. The length of time required for these new downtime or franchise activities varies from number of days equal to 1 work week or more. All the normal rules of downtime must be followed by the character or NPC undertaking the downtime or franchise activity, including spending 8 hours each day engaged in that activity. Alright, so this is, a lot of this is the rules that were referenced earlier for downtime activities. That you can find, well, it's in here obviously, but you can find those in the other supplements. Well, the one supplement and the 2 core books. The PHP's optional, whatever. No matter how densely populated or remote a wild territory in which a franchise is licensed to operate, that territory has secrets. Characters and franchise staff can explore their licensed territory in search of useful features, hidden layers, resources, and creatures that can be engaged in beneficial service, or, you know, sold for parts if you're okay with that. Exploration can be done any number of times in a franchise's territory, representing new areas being explored, new discoveries, or elements that have changed since the last exploration. Exploring a portion of a licensed territory requires at least 1 work week of effort and incurs 200 gold pieces per franchise rank and expenses. Spending more time and money increases the chance that the expedition finds something of use for the franchise. A character or staff member directing the expedition to make a wisdom survival check to determine the outcome. This check gains a +2 bonus if the character with a cartographer or occultant position is part of the expedition, a +1 for each work week beyond the first that is spent exploring, and a +1 bonus for every additional 200 gold pieces spent over the baseline expenses. A maximum bonus of +10 can be applied to this check. The total of the check determines the outcome as shown in the exploration discoveries table. Major threat, minor threat, no discovery, natural feature, new customers, ally or useful monster, and expanded benefit. And might involve a rival. So, you know, the major threat, it might not be the big bad evil guy. It could just be someone who competes against you, maybe even honorably. But, you know, someone who's not on your team and makes that known, but also someone who you would trust wouldn't stab you in the back, as they'd rather have the honorable fight. Estwild, whoa, hey, it has been a little while. Estwild, it is great to see you back. Sorry, I got caught up in reading here. Catching up in chat, talking about the luck halfling divination counter. Sometimes you want to let them use it and really benefit from abilities invested in. I get uneasy when they go planar binding to Solar to themselves. Oh boy. When we hit level 5 on my Warlock, I'm going to take the Pact of the Tome. Feat that lets you not sleep and just do light activity during a long rest. That's a good one. In a downtime heavy campaign that's going to let me do a lot. Yeah, you're going to be a money producer, XCat. Multi-attack, giving enemies... Is that Pact of the Tome? Or I think that's a great old one, invocation. I mean, I could be wrong, but multi-attack giving enemies advantage and other things are good. Rock, paper, scissors against Lucky. No worries, do your thing. No, Estwild, hey, welcome. I'm glad to have you back here. I hope you've been well. Pact of the Tome, okay. Yeah, I mean, if a DM does like super punish mechanics, it could feel that way, especially if it hasn't been talked about. You know, if you're like, you know, Bill, dude, you have this build and this is just, it's not fun to play with. I am not having fun, and the other players are not having fun. And so we're talking about this. We're gonna need a new build. I'll help you, you know, get this current character into it, or we need to discuss some other way, or you need to realize that, you know, we've been playing together for several months now, and you've used this wombo combo on every encounter. Encounters are going to start changing because you are influencing. People see what's happening, and you are seen as a major threat. So be prepared for it, because the difficulty is ramping up. Things like that. All right, so exploration discoveries, and then the details here. I'm not going to read every detail. Some of them are probably going to be obvious, but these are just things that does it interest you? What happens if you explore? Well, here they are. I mean, you could have been reading them while I was talking on camera. Always good to talk to the player rather than punishing them, but making things challenging is expected. Explore territory complications. So here's the discoveries. Here's ways that things can go wrong. An example, the beneficial element has a nefarious past, bears a curse, or comes with a dark secret. Bad luck seems to follow anyone interacting with the beneficial element. Ah. Maybe a random disadvantage or something. You could do some franchise restructuring. A growing franchise often needs fine-tuning to improve its operations and remain lean and capable. Efficiency measures, bold new paradigms, shiny business plans, internal audits, and inventory management can be key to new profits. The best plans often end up creating an auxiliary market for how-to books, such as can't-miss principles of franchise revisionary strategy and what to inquire about how to acquire. In some campaigns, head office might periodically require this task to ensure that the franchise grows effectively. Boldly restructuring a franchise requires at least 2 work weeks of effort. The franchise must also spend 100 gold per franchise rank in the expenses. And the resolution, characters or staff members in charge of the restructuring make 2 ability checks. First, a character or staff member must succeed at blah blah blah. The check gains a +1 bonus. Etc. so forth. A character or staff member must then make a charisma check. +1. Okay. So it's going through how you could do that. You got to have the winning smile. You got to lay out the HR restructuring plan. Plans of failure. The franchise's monthly costs increase by 20% for a month. Restructuring provides minor benefits. Costs decrease by 10%. Or the restructuring plan provides strong benefits. The franchise's monthly costs decrease by 20% for 1d4 months. My goodness. Result of a 0 success typically indicates that a failed restructuring results in a complication. And here you go. Remember, these are recommended, or they're offered complications. Your complications may vary because the book itself is telling you to sit down as a dungeon master with your players and work out what could happen. You could modify your headquarters. Major headquarters modifications are made as a regular part of franchise advancement, but it's sometimes desirable to update a previous modification in ways that don't provide any additional mechanical benefits. Characters and franchise staff members can use this activity to modify an existing headquarters feature. This change is subject to DM approval and is typically done within the same feature category, such as swapping one weapon option for another. In response to pressing need, the DM might allow a franchise to swap options between categories, such as losing a weapon option in favor of an arcane option. The DM can limit how often this activity is used. Go through the methodology, the resources, the resolution. Here's how you can modify, and this is how you can contemplate. Now, you should contemplate what to do next at that point in time. But there's complications that can come from it, such as a spy makes a copy of the plans for the modification, learning its function, and taking that information back to a rival organization. Dun, 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 da, 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 da. Going to chat real quick. Eswald, hanging in there. My current game's DM moves to Italy at the end of this month, so our campaign has been fast-forwarding rather quickly. Fought an ancient black dragon last week, one of the several big bad evil gals, and found out taking the fight to a dragon in the sky helps with avoiding the breath weapon. Oh, playing some 3D&D? It sounds like it was a very dynamic combat, and I'm sorry you're going to lose your DM soon, but hey, if you're getting in, you're getting that last that last huzzah, and the story can still play out and you can appreciate it. You know what? In the end, you're going to have some awesome memories, Estwild. Aspect of the Moon is the invocation I was thinking of. Old Port says my Documancer was smart. They got the head office to agree that they can only restructure in the winter. Oh, is that so that they avoid like losing adventuring time in the better months? So you can go marketeering. Every successful franchise knows that brands require constant management. Developing new markets, shaping catchy slogans, and surveying and engaging customers can all create new sources of revenue. Should you write and sell exciting chapbook serials based on the exploits of Omen, Jim, Morgaine, and Viari? Should you sell a complex investment scheme to a city's guildmasters? Should you create a branded stage production based on your franchise's existing adventures with a line of clothing to match? All those things and more are encompassed by the fine art of marketeering. The players must first sketch out their marketeering plan and present it to the DM. Nice, broad. It could be, you know, it's there. It's a rule, but it's broad and allows so much imagination. Oh, I love it. So they're out there. They're marketing their brand. It's exactly that. Boy, you play this campaign long enough, and you will get an honorary associate's degree in business. How you go about marketeering, and of course, the complications. The marketeering plan attracts the attention of head office, where someone absolutely hates it. An NPC is sent to oversee the franchise, quote unquote, for a while, with an outcome to be determined by the DM. The catchphrase or theme song of the marketeering campaign is a surprise hit, and everyone repeats it endlessly until they tire of it and begin blaming the franchise for mental trauma. That, and they figured out that they can put contracts in with the head office. Contracts. Wait, so it's really they're waiting for head office to give them adventures, and so they're really just sort of an extension of head office because they're doing head office's work in this remote location instead of like prospecting themselves. It can feel great to give to charity and help those in need. Pretending to care about others can also be a great way to earn favor with governments and nobility, gain tax write-offs, or win over customers. Head office might suggest or even require that a franchise undertake this activity if it has recently gained negative publicity or been discovered to engage in shady activities. Franchise members should select a philanthropic cause related to a nearby area, settlement, or group of people. Example causes include such efforts as picking up trash from roads or forests, improving schools, and raising funds for victims of a recent disaster. That last one is an especially good idea if the disaster was caused by the franchise. Success benefits the franchise by helping the selected cause, or at least giving the appearance of having done so. Failure might worsen both the underlying issue and the franchise's reputation. Philanthropic Enterprise. So if you get a low check number, the Philanthropic Enterprise is a disaster. The cause is left severely worse off, and literally everyone blames the franchise. Then again, the cause shows remarkable improvement, and the franchise is credited for all but fully resolving the issue. Local officials provide a tax break, reducing the franchise's monthly cost by 20% for 2 months. And complications. Another philanthropic group is already involved in the franchise's cause. That group tries to cast the franchise's efforts as ineffective and insincere. Ugh. Hearing of the franchise's good works, people who are affected by some other issue requiring philanthropic assistance show up at franchise headquarters in huge numbers. Rah, 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 rah. You can just choose to run your franchise. Running a business is one of the downtime activities presented in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but an Acquisitions Incorporated franchise is no mere business. This new downtime and franchise activity covers the many and varied duties necessary to keep a franchise running smoothly, and determines how well the characters and their staff manage those duties. Alright, this is a big one, but you know what? This is a bread and butter, right? Running a franchise is, well, it's your moneymaker. It's what you got to do. So there are some rules here. I'm not going to go over the specifics. Again, you are going to be collaborating with the other people at your table for this. So you can consider, you can weigh the benefits. Franchise is a shining example to other Acquisitions Incorporated franchises. Monthly costs decreased by 150%. Ooh, isn't that nice? Now, not your income goes up, your costs super go down. Non-payment penalties. So this is going to be a big part. In our game, our Documenter has a pouch that has contract come from head office via magic, but we are also able to go to bounty boards. Anything we do for ourselves, we get all the rewards from, but any contract handled through AC Inc., they take 20%. That makes sense. Oh, contracts in with the head office in the sense that they can make deals with the head office to help themselves out. You can go into scrutineering. As a member of an Acquisitions Incorporated franchise, you scoff at those who limit their intelligence gathering activities to mere research or sagery. The scrutineering activity covers basic research easily enough. Finding a new profitable venture, learning of what pleases head office, amassing lore about a site or a monster, and so forth. But it can also expand across a much broader range of activities. You might engage, kidnap is such a harsh word, you might engage members of a rival group, learn the secrets of a stronghold known only to those who built it, assess an organization's business model to determine its weaknesses, or lay rightful claim to any information that might benefit your franchise in some way. There's the resources and resolution. How do you go about scrutineering? It's all right there for you. This one's pretty, what the worst that happens is nothing. And you could learn some interesting prompts, some good lore from that. Complications. A source was a greedy information broker who decides to also sell information about the franchise or head office to a rival. Oh, there's that rival again. Shady business. The quickest path to success often runs straight through the thickets of questionable legality. Franchises that can overcome the morally dubious aspects of certain enterprises and can deal with the risk of being caught engaging in those enterprises might wish to consider such time-honored practices as back-of-the-wagon discount sales, fly-by-night gambling halls, highway robbery, racketeering, and pyramid schemes. Shady business practices can also include corporate espionage against rivals and other AC Inc. franchises, including stealing goods or sabotaging commercial efforts. Ooh. Here we go. A suitably shady business practice. And here's some illustrations. This was the loremonger gnome. And this was the elven, what was the role? It was, I'm derping offhand. Why would I know anything about shady business practices? Why are you asking me? I'm sure I don't know what you mean. Plausible deniability certainly is not an important business tip I'd recommend. Complication. A citizens group hears rumors about the franchise's involvement in the shady scheme and forms a watch organization to monitor the characters. A thieves guild or other criminal organization takes an interest in the scheme. They order the franchise to run this activity every month and demand a 10% cut. When the franchise does so, all checks for shady business practice activities are made with advantage. Ooh. Of course, you can go schmoozing. Now, there is some rules for carousing, but let's see what the difference is with schmoozing. Eswild says, what's amusing with these is the stories I would hear of people that ask friends to make decisions for a BBG, like a head of a thieves guild or something. So running franchises and stuff like this can work in those aspects, too. If you want to have a whole lot of extra parts. Yeah. Estwild, Acquisitions Incorporated is certainly... So it's sort of like base management, not necessarily like real-time strategy stuff, but it's a lot of base management, everyone working together, a lot of storytelling and taking these meta roles that people have and incorporating them into the game and to have it be a part of it. Where people are you are the assigned decision maker. The party's going to go with what you say. It can take a lot of arguments off the table, because everyone is willfully engaging in this optional rule. The schmoozing activity is more than just a random carousing, chatting people up at society parties, or pumping strangers for information over copious drinks. Full disclosure, copious drinks are often still a part of the bigger schmoozing picture. For characters in an Acquisitions Incorporated campaign, schmoozing is a carefully focused engagement of bargaining and influence, designed to harvest contacts important to a franchise's interests. So that is how they're differentiating it. Now, of course, like anything, you roll high, you get good results. There's complications. A different group notices the character's schmoozing attempts. Agents threaten to expose the franchise's ulterior motives unless the characters perform a favor or pay a bribe. You can do some team building. Heck yeah, trust fall. The frenetic pace of adventuring and running a franchise sometimes covers up underlying issues. Has the party's cleric accidentally started worshipping a dark god? Is the major domo at odds with the occultant's habit of displaying entrails in the Great Hall? Is the fighter questioning their life choices? The team-building activity can help characters work through problems, settle differences, and adjust the work-life balance. In the end, everyone ends up with a healthier working relationship. Or at least that's the plan. At the DM's discretion, characters might be directed by head office to run this activity each time a new franchise rank is gained, or during times of exceptional chouse or uncertainty. Yes, there is a cat, and so cat butt emotes are more than welcome. The team, complication. The team building activity is revealed to actually be a death trap, an island of doom or similar challenge. The DM determines whether this was an honest mix-up, the act of a disgruntled staff member, or the actions of a rival. Tressum is on the alert for invisible people. By the way, you got the spell Find Familiar from your group's wizard, and when you cast it, the DM let me have a Tressum. Aw. Well, that's cool. What's, did you name your familiar, X-Cat? Now, of course, a benefit, you get kind of a middling result. The participant was able to work through one or more issues. If this is a character, they have advantage on the next check they make during a franchise downtime activity. That's pretty good. I like it. I like it a lot. All right. Whoop. Tressum are neat. They can identify poisons, too. DM tried to let the players have a gazer as a familiar, and they killed it. Did they not understand it was going to be a familiar? Or did they just see, it's like a baby beholder, destroy it before it grows big? They have an 11 int and can understand common. They just can't speak it. Yeah. Well, you know what? We hit the franchise, the end of the franchise segment. And that is going to leave us for the Thursday broadcast in Chapter 3 Player Options, where we are going to explore backgrounds and spells and all this other good stuff. I did, however, invite my patron, the Shadow Cat, to inhabit my familiar, which, when they do, the shadow of my tiny Tressum is like 3 times bigger than it should be. Oh, I like that as a sort of a fun manifestation, X-Cat.